There we are, everyone. You can hear we are live today, but we're also recording this webinar. So let's kick it off. We are 2 minutes past 3. So a very warm welcome. Very happy for everyone to be here. My name is Helen Muzzard and I'm the CMO of IAB Europe. So welcome to IAB Europe webinar on the in-gaming advertising. As well as being the CMO of IAB Europe, I also have the pleasure of managing IAB Europe's industry side committees. So I'm therefore delighted to bring together a panel of experts from our brand advertising committee to discuss the latest updates and insights on advertising within in-gaming environments in Europe. The world of gaming has undergone a remarkable transformation in recent years, with video games becoming a mainstream entertainment option for millions of people across the globe. According to recent statistics, there are almost 1.48 billion gamers in Asia alone, making it the largest market for the video gaming worldwide, followed by Europe with 715 million gamers. And by next year, it is expected that there will be 3.3 billion gamers worldwide, highlighting the incredible potential of this emerging channel for brands. At this webinar, we will explore the key opportunities, challenges, and innovations in in-gaming advertising. Our digital advertising experts will provide insights on how in-gaming is evolving, the ad formats available, and the best practices for buyers to take advantage of this emerging channel. Today's conversation is hot on the wheels of our newly released and updated guide to in-gaming advertising. It's been written by experts of IAB Europe's brand advertising committee, and notably the ones that you'll be hearing from shortly. And it provides definitions, has insights into how it works, with key consideration and best practices from buyers. The first version we released in November 2021, so it was literally just after the pandemic. And this one has got much more updates, including obviously the fact that in-gaming, we will discuss that later, can now be brought on the open market. So thank you very much for joining us today for this exciting and informative discussion on in-gaming advertising. And we hope you can discover how your brand can benefit from this dynamic and rapidly growing channel. So let's welcome our moderator today, Ryan Martin, who is the chair of our brand advertising committee, and he can introduce his panel. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Helen. Thank you very much. Lovely introduction. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Before I go, just to let everyone know, as we are live today, we will be taking questions at the end. So I'll come back on and see if we've got any questions for the panel after the ones that you finish. So if anyone does have any questions, please do put them into the Q&A box. So I'll hand it over to you. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Nice one. Thank you, Helen, and lovely to meet you all today. For those that I haven't met before, my name's Ryan. I work at TikTok as a program manager for the business marketing team, and I also have the pleasure of being the chair of the brand advertising committee, which is the hat that I'm wearing today, and to host some of our brand advertising committee to talk about, as Helen says, the new in-gaming guide that we've just launched. Obviously, in-gaming, a big focus for the committee over Q1. And of course, across this whole year. So without further ado, we can get to our panel. We have a great panel for you today. We have Gabrielle, who's product manager at Eskme. We have the wonderful Oliver, who's the founder and CEO of Next and Statista. And then we have Yusuf, who works at the Verve Group. So a really great mix of people on the panel today. So we'll start off nice and easy. We'll just go around one by one, just for you guys to introduce yourselves, let the guys know a bit about your background, but what your businesses do, and then we can really get into the weeds of in-gaming. So Gabrielle, we'll come to you first.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the invite to this panel. So yeah, I'm Gabriela, I'm one of the product managers at Eskme. My role as a product manager is actually to grow emerging channels. One of it is in-game, so in-game actually has a big part of my heart. While at Eskme, we are a full stack programmatic platform, and we're trying to democratize programmatic advertising in regions like Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe. So we're bringing all of this good stuff to these emerging markets.
Nice one, wonderful. Welcome to the panel. Oliver, we'll come to you next.
Hey, I'm Oliver. I'm based in Hamburg, where currently online marketing rockstars is run. I'm partner in Next Statista, which is a digital strategy consultancy, and I'm focused on developing monetization, future advertising, ad tech, and data strategies for our customers. And also I support a couple of US-based trade organizations in their market communication in Europe. One of those is, which might be relevant to the panel discussion, is the Coalition for Better Ads, who recently did an in-app and in-game study. And also I support IAB Tech Lab in their market communication in Europe.
Brilliant. Thanks, Oliver. Thanks for taking some time out of what I'm sure is a busy OMR schedule for you to join us. And finally, we have Yusuf, who I think is aptly sat in the gaming chair. Welcome to the panel.
That is correct. It actually arrived at the same time as COVID started, so it was right on time. Hi, I'm Yusuf. I'm a team lead in Smaro, which is now part of the Verve Group, team lead in the EMEA supply. And my role is to grow the business for existing publishers who, whether they're in the game industry or any other types of categories.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. So obviously we've got a great panel on today, and the idea of this in-gaming guide was to really introduce folks to the world of in-gaming, help people who maybe they can be experts in it, but also folks that maybe just dipping their toe into this new and emerging channel, and help them feel really comfortable with it by providing definitions and kind of, you know, what to watch out for when it's. So, I mean, I guess we'll start with a nice, hopefully nice and easy question. But how do you define in-game advertising? What is it that we're kind of talking about here? I think Oliver, it'd be great to kind of start with you on this one.
Yeah, the most complex questions first. Well, if we look at at games overall, at video games, it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge portion of the media usage and the online usage which customers do every day. And if you look into it, there are various types of games and various forms of gaming. Obviously, there is mobile games, which is obviously the biggest, according to market research from Statista, is the biggest chunk by means of revenue. We have online games, we have download games, we have physically sold video games, which you buy in old-fashioned retail stores and install it on your PC. You have live streaming games, you have gaming networks, and you have cloud gaming. And very likely also other formats which I couldn't count and couldn't mention. So there is heterogeneity, but there is a huge opportunity. And if you look at in-game experiences, and if you look at in-game usage or content usage, it's a kind of content usage. I guess it's one of the stable growth factors by means of media usage. If you look at TV and print advertising and some of the other channels, those are not growing anymore. In-game usage and airtime in games have increased over the years and have a stable of the growth forecast.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's so interesting seeing, you know, I think gaming sometimes gets misidentified as, you know, people you know, playing on consoles or on computers, but gaming is so much broader these days. You know, as you say, with mobile gaming, everybody, I'm sure if they look back at their behavior on computers and phones or whatever, has been a gamer at some point, whether it being playing Candy Crush or you know, some of the more quite intense computer games. Gabrielle, you know, what does in-gaming mean to you, into your business? You know, obviously, I'm assuming fairly similar to what Oliver said, but, you know, I'd love to talk and hear about it from yours and Esme's perspective.
Yeah, so Oliver put it nicely when it comes to like the different devices that user uses to play games. When it comes from our side, we're fully focusing to the in-game advertising, which didn't have that clear definitions before IAB standardized it. And now we're seeing three, and maybe in the future it will definitely expand. So three key layers of in-game advertising. One is around the game, which would be rewarded video interstitial. Then we have blended in-game ads, which blends nicely into the game. It's more like digital out of home in the game itself. And then there is a third area, which is outside the game, like sponsorships, etc. So when we're talking about in-game advertising, I think we should focus on these three areas. Of course, it might be a bit of a misconception as we would think that in-game advertising is only blended in-game ads, but we have to consider that it is only a part of the whole in-game advertising ecosystem. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the first step, isn't it? Helping people understand what the different kind of platforms are within the game. Because you're right, there's obviously, interstitial videos that aren't within the context of the game, but that's an advertising platform, and it's still a way to reach what is a really, really valuable audience. Yusuf, and from your perspective, talk to us about in-gaming.
Yeah, actually, in our company, we have actually a defined a definition for in-gaming advertisement, specifically for what you mentioned, Gabrielle, about only intrinsic content. So we're talking about, of course, placing ads within the game environment, whether they are billboards or in-game objects, right? Or even like product placement in the storyline or the gameplay. Whether they're sometimes put even sometimes in the menu. So this could be sometimes seen as interstitial videos, sometimes seen as the intrinsic type, but maybe just because of our company structure, we decided to define the in-gaming ads specifically for intrinsic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And for those that maybe aren't aware, we're talking about like billboards within the game. So if you're in a racing game, it would be a billboard on the side of the track, or in a football game, the advertising hoarding around the outside, so which is available to buy, which is quite a similar mirroring to what you can do in the real world, obviously with out-of-home advertising as well. So obviously, as Helen mentioned, we've had in-gaming guides from the IAB for a couple of years now. So we released the first one in 2021. And obviously we probably overdue an update releasing this one in 2023. Lots of things have developed over the past 18 months. I'd love to hear from you guys what have been the big developments that you've seen, you've maybe been a part of, that you can talk about in the past 18 months. Gabrielle, we'll start with you there, please.
Yeah, so I've seen these 18 months as a more of practical cases. Like, I'm seeing definitely more talks from the publisher perspective, where they're actually sharing what kind of messages they're getting from their users when they have adopted the in-game advertising. So, we're hearing comments like, we are used to going to a football field and seeing these billboards in the live environment, and we're seeing the same when we're playing a soccer game. So it bridges the gap between the real and online environment, which publishers and gamers are even like promoting. And at the same time, we're seeing a much faster adoption from the advertiser perspective. Some of the budgets are being moved only from the testing of the in-game advertising, but actually becoming an omni-channel solution where blending in-game ad becomes like every month ongoing advertising, which is great. It means that advertisers and publishers are seeing a bigger value in this advertising, because before that we didn't have like an alternative. There was like rewarded video and etc. But we definitely saw like bad connotations with it, because it's just annoying. It's not it's not user friendly. But now we have an alternative for both advertisers and the publishers to actually have a totally different advertising solution. So I'm seeing a lot of practical cases, which is good. It means that we're not talking about the theory. We're actually seeing that it's being adopted and there are improvements in our life. So yeah, this is even good.
Amazing. Yeah, it's quite the journey, I guess. Yeah, as people kind of see it, it's good for advertisers to reach, as we talked about, that audience. It's great for the players of these games, adding that element of realism. So yeah, it feels like it's come a long way in the past 18 months. Yusuf, from your perspective, what have you seen over the last 18 months in the development of in-gaming?
One word, actually, growth, for sure. One major development over the past 18 months, I would say, it's been the increasing popularity of in-gaming supply for programmatic, specifically talking. And since that's what we're doing, we've been growing the business quite well in that perspective. We pretty much started on a very small scale with some partners that I cannot name, but over the course of the last 18 months, or even 2 years, I would say, since 2021, some of these have grew their revenues by ×2 and others even ×10. And the main reason for that is because there was way more supply available. And the more supply that was available, obviously the more traffic, and vice versa, advertisers started to pick up on that specific type of format. And there was a definite interest growth from the advertisers as well, specifically for in-gaming. So it's going definitely the right direction.
Yeah, it feels like it's at that point on the hockey stick graph where it's really starting to shoot up. There's interest from advertisers, people want to get involved. There's interest from publishers because it's a great way of adding realism and obviously an additional revenue stream. So it feels like the stars are aligning to really see that growth continue. Oliver, from your point of view, you must be seeing that kind of growth in the numbers you're seeing. It'd be great to kind of hear from you on that.
Yeah, then from the Statista research, I can confirm this. Yeah, exactly. So if we look at in-game advertising in Europe, we come down to, according to our forecast, 2.7 million euros revenue in this year. And remarkably, there is a stable growth. So if you look at other digital channels, due to recession effects and everything else, right? And concerns about display advertising. Display obviously is not growing that much. Other channels are growing, CTV is growing, but in-game shows a stable growth, which is in the dimension of 10% CAGR, and will remain like that in the next few years. From other industry discussions, I would say what comes with that growth is other advertisers. So in the past we were seeing, and I guess Yusuf and Gabriel could confirm that, in the past we were mostly seeing gaming companies advertising in games, like to get the users of your direct competitor convert into your game. And this changes. Now more and more brand advertisers try the channel out because there's consistent growth in airtime, there's consistent performance, and there is acceptance of users, like the game remains for free, or I don't have to pay that much if I accept advertising. And with branded advertisers entering the channel, also some issues occur, right? So more intrusive ad formats are maybe an issue to usage, maybe it's something which brand advertisers don't want to take, because same as in desktop or mobile, if you have ad blocking as an opportunity, and if you use mobile games, it's not ad blocking, it's just not playing anymore, then you have to be conscious which ad formats do you use, and that those formats find user acceptance.
And I guess that's something you've been kind of looking at in the context of the Coalition for Better Ads, and how does that play out in gaming?
Exactly. So we did a study last year actually it was called in-app, but mainly the ad formats analyzed there in a representative research were in-game experiences, and we found, and it was real user feedback. So we executed the study in more than 10 countries globally. And there were formats like interruptive interstitials, video interstitials, interrupting the gaming experience inside a level, non-skippable interstitials, and so on. So formats like that, which users identified as extremely annoying. And I guess ad networks, there are good ad networks, there are not so good ad networks. They are just trying out, right? So if you do a non-skippable interstitial inside a game, users accidentally click and then you get performance, but that is not something that advertisers obviously want. So those formats are part of the Better Ads standard in this domain, and also Google is like putting that out as a guideline to developers, which means they reject ads which reject apps which contain these kind of ad formats. So this is the typical discussion we had in desktop in their growth, and we had in mobile web. So if a channel constantly grows, there's misusage. There's the need for the same performance indicators than in any other channel, and then you probably have an issue also with ad formats which you need to solve as an industry.
Yeah, feels a very familiar tale, and a pattern we've seen before on desktop advertising, but hopefully one that we're better equipped with the technology we have available to kind of answer and deal with those and roll out the standards that we have developed already. Gabriel, I'd love to hear from you about, obviously you've been contributing to the latest in-gaming guide. What do you feel is the new opportunities for advertisers, that are out there that you would really encourage people to be exploring and checking out?
Yeah, great question. So I think for any advertiser, the biggest problem that they face when they were running blended in-game ads, it was a low scale. Now with programmatic emerging, and we are seeing that brands are now able to run blended in-game ads at scale, and with that to segment their target audience. So it's not only like broad target group of users that are playing the game. It's actually, you can target based on different interests, genre, etc. And this is defined in the latest guide, which wasn't available and wasn't mentioned in the previous guide. And additionally, we can talk about like different ad formats like audio in-game advertising, which is emerging and it still has to ramp up. But we're seeing these new formats coming up. Of course, the viability measurement should be mentioned, which was launched by IAB, which helps to standardize the whole market. So essentially, in-game advertising, it's still a new channel. So it requires to go through all of these standardizations, growth opportunities, bigger market players adopting it, etc. So we're still seeing the growth. We're not there yet, but it's definitely a good time for an advertiser to start. So I think like the best time to start before it actually ramps up and we have like a big competition in the market. So I would see these as like the main criteria which I saw in the guide as the most important.
Nice. Yeah, it feels like in-gaming is at that kind of adolescent phase where it's trying things out. It won't always get it right, but we've got to help guide it and help it form into a more mature platform. Yusuf, what do you see as the opportunities for in-gaming?
I like a lot what Gabriel said, but I would also like to specific on the part that you should just jump into the opportunity right now before it's too late and the whole market becomes too saturated or too expensive to jump in. And with the same idea, I would like also to see a big opportunity for anything that is VR, virtual reality, or augmented reality in this scenario. That even these two secluded for now markets should definitely be tapped in, because you would, as an advertiser, I could see the opportunity to create an even more immersive and interactive advertising experience for users. And same as the whole rise of esports. It's been going on for years now, and since actually it's from Statista, Oliver, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's from this year to about 5 years from now, we're supposed to see a 30 to 40% growth in viewers in esports. So this is again a whole new audience that can be again targeted from the advertiser perspective.
Yeah, I think that is the thing, isn't it? It's I think the word that keeps coming up here is scale. It's the size, it's the opportunity of the market in terms of the audience you can reach, and now there's more routes to go and reach that market through the development in technology. Oliver, a word from you on the opportunities for in gaming. What are you seeing as opportunities?
Yeah, basically you get target groups which you might not get to that extent in other environments. That's one of the key motivations for advertising, is going into different channels. And the second one, which means you have to ask yourself if you really want to go for like 15 or 16-year-old boys gaming all the time, and if you want to show them your ad message, it relates to the brand. But of course, these are interesting target groups which you don't find in other digital channels, and not at all find in analog channels. So and they have spending power. So that is what's happening. They constantly spend time in these environments, especially on the mobile phone. On the mobile, it is also a girl's experience. So their usage is not only male, it's also female. So those are attractive target groups which otherwise only can be reached in social channels with all the factors you see in social channels. You have feeds and so on. And in games, you have an in-game experience, and the user is focusing actually on the activity. And if I'm not focusing on playing the level or playing the round in my game, I have attention left for maybe ads, and I accept those ads if they are relevant to me. So those are the same questions for like investment decisions, which are relevant to all other media channels, which are relevant to advertisers. If you look at CTV, why should I do CTV? Because I have exclusive airtime on the big screen. I can show a video ad which is targeted, which is related to the format the user is viewing. Same for in-game. So I see a lot of similarities also in the growth between CTV and in-game.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the other thing to kind of add to that is the importance of kind of getting the creative right for the environment you're in, right? You know, we talk about fit for platform creative with social media platforms, and it's the same for connected TV and making sure you're integrating in the game in a natural way. So yeah, when people do engage with your ad, it's fitting with the environment. Obviously, the IAB Europe's in-gaming guide covers all the different kind of buying methods. And one of the buying methods that wasn't available on the last guide, and I think we've touched on it slightly already, but you know, obviously there's the availability to buy in-gaming ads on the open exchange. Like how do we see this growth, or how's this kind of opportunity grown? The opportunities within in-gaming, and you know, how's it affecting the way that you're able to speak to your clients about it? Yusuf, we'll go to you first.
Sure. I kind of touched that up before by saying how the business grew in the programmatic level. But we do have, we did also witness not only the business from existing clients, but also new publishers or inventory sources. Here would be third-party providers who would be coming towards us, telling us that, hey, now they have in-gaming inventory, and how do we get going, right? So there are countless of ways of integration via OpenRTB or Private or other ways. So the methodologies of integration are also diversified, but at least they're available. So that's what's important here, is that we provide always a solution to make it happen. It has not been the case before. That was a big problem for them to make it happen, because by the end of the day, here we're talking about a third-party provider between the in-gaming owner, right, and us. So there will be a middleman in between, and that would have been one of the challenges in between, was to know if the technology was compatible. But as time has been going on, technology as well has been developed to the point where this is possible. And like I said before, we grew into that direction in a very profitable way from all directions, whether it's from the advertiser side or from the publisher.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Gabrielle, I guess it's a similar story for you, that Open Exchange is created lots of opportunities for you.
Yeah, of course. Yusuf nicely talked about like workflows improvement. Additionally, what we have seen that like open auction allowed faster adoption for the advertisers at high scale, and with targeting capabilities which weren't available when you're working with one provider, because just, you know, the supply will be just too small. And of course, the planning tools. Now, the in-game advertising can be more strategic, more focused to a specific audience, and naturally you have all of the available supply throughout, like through one app, which is great. I think this helps like the small, really niche channel to grow from that infancy to like all the ages. So this is really necessary, and of course this is not the end. We have to see other changes when it comes to open auction bidding, like how to improve the open RTB protocols. Not talking about that we will have a signal for blended in-game, but how to get like a specific genre, IVT, dwell times, etc. So how to make it even more friendly for buying and more easy, because this will help the blended in-game ads to actually be adopted even a higher scale than it was before, because the workflows were like buying it through a PMP or just like going directly, which is not effective in the current advertising time. We want to, have everything fast at a high scale.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really opened up the scale. And Oliver, a word from you on kind of what you see in the open exchange and how you see that developing.
Yeah, on the one hand, in-game, especially in mobile environments, is profiting from the developments that the rest of the digital advertising market on display and the browser-based digital advertising market made in the past 15 years, right? So there is OpenRTB as an exchange protocol. There is a lot of connectivity in the ecosystem. Every relevant ad tech platform is connected to this, and which means, and if you look at things like measurement, there's Open Measurement SDK from IAB Tech Lab, which has a high adoption amongst in-game ad networks. Smarto is certified, for example. So there are more than, I think in the meantime, more than 150 companies certified, committed to this standard, which enables measurement over platforms through CTV, through browsers, through in-app, and app means multiple platforms in such as well. So that is good. So you can leverage existing scalability, which the ecosystem has developed. And on a ironic side note, there are no cookies, so you don't have any issues with privacy by default. You don't need to remove something; it's not there. On the other hand, in-game is one of the biggest sources of ad fraud, which we know, right? So where there is intensive usage, where there are billions of users, there is fraud, and the fraudsters are trying to leverage the massive spending and the growing spending globally. Some people might say, no, fraud is not a European problem. It's more in APAC and it's more in the US and the really big mobile markets, but it is also there in Europe. So that is something that the industry has to fight, because when there will be constant growth over the next years, which looks like that for in-game advertising, you have to fight the bad guys.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. We've got to make sure that we keep a lid on that thing, and it's like with all things, with great opportunity, there comes some kind of challenges that we need to face along the way. And so, I mean, when we look at obviously the barriers for investment for advertisers, we know that people see this as opportunity, but there's there's obviously caution. I know that you mentioned some advertisers are kind of going through that test and learn, moving into kind of it being a more always on channel for them. But how do you see, what are the big barriers you're seeing from advertisers to stop them investing or stop them investing more in the platform? And how can we kind of give them a bit more information to kind of allay those concerns and trying to encourage them to kind of dip their toe in slightly further? Gabrielle, will come to you.
Yeah, I think even through this panel discussion, we are touching upon one of the major barriers that advertisers think there is, like the scalability, workflows, etc. Like as an ad tech company or like in-game provider, we have to educate. We have to continuously inform what is happening in the market, and that the supply is always changing. We are seeing big game networks, game developers adopting in-game advertising. So it means that the market will is improving and will continue to improve further. Like we are seeing that major players like Sony are planning to adopt in-game advertising as well, which will be one of the biggest shifts in the in-game advertising space. And when it comes to other barriers, of course, I think in-game ads tend to come along with a lot of misconceptions about like the audience that you are reaching, the games that you're advertising through. So all of these misconceptions have to be addressed to education. There was a really nice study done by IAB finding success in in-game advertising. I definitely encourage everybody to read it. It definitely bridges the gap between what brands understand, what ad tech understand, how publishers understand, and actually like how the bridges are being met between all of these parties. So yeah, I think that through education, through all of these studies, all of these myths will be busted, and yeah, the barriers will be removed.
Great. So the in-gaming guide is already fighting the good fight to kind of allay those concerns. Yusuf,
Yes.
do you have anything to add on that point?
I'm actually very happy that she used the word education, because we also agree that I also agree that education is the most important part here. I mean, on one hand, whenever we discuss about these third-party in-gaming format suppliers, this technology is never really owned by the publisher per se, so they will always have to rely on a third-party person, right? At the same time, this may look for some advertisers like this is not a direct connection, but it is the only connection. So we need to always educate these advertisers that even if there is some middleman in this scenario, it is still considered as a direct connection. And why am I talking about direct? Because the whole industry is moving into a whole SPO where they want access to direct inventory only, right? They don't want to jump in between other suppliers before getting from point A to point B. In this in-gaming format, it's a bit more complex. You need to have a third-party supplier, and because of this, it could build some questions from the advertiser side, which is pretty normal. But we always have to educate them of this. In addition to that, there is still some technical challenge going on around this whole format, because it is a complex technical infrastructure, and it can make it difficult for some advertisers to meet 100% of their KPIs. For example, if we're talking about clicking the ad, today it can be as important as just viewing the ad, right? And not everybody can afford to provide that specific simple technological part. And I think that's something that you need to adapt for sure, and you need to be on the industry standards in order to please everybody, whether it's the advertisers, the users, and of course the publishers. And I think my last point would be another limitation would be that the dependency between these third-party providers and the publishers will always be very high for them to be, for example, compliant with the latest industry trends. So if we're talking TCF2 or ad.txt lines to be implemented, there will always be another middleman in between to depend from the other person to make those happen. So those will be the limitations, but only time will tell if this can be reduced.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think there's two things you kind of mentioned there that really make me happy, and I'm sure the folks from IAB Europe as well, is education, which obviously we're tackling with the in-gaming guide, and standardization, which again we're tackling with the in-gaming guide. So if you haven't already got it, make sure you've got the IAB in-gaming guide to get all this kind of great information in there. Oliver, from your perspective, you advertisers dipping their toe into in-gaming for the first time. What kind of metrics would you advise advertisers to kind of keep their eyes out for and be looking for? And what success metrics should they look at?
Yeah, basically it's the same as in all other channels, but with different accents, so to speak. So Advertisers want brand safety. I mentioned the fraud problem, which is obviously there in game environments. That should be solved. There is the expectation of course performance. That is great in app, especially in mobile games environments. There is performance given. That is one main driving factor for games companies spending multiple $1 million every year and actually every day in game environments. But brand experience is maybe an issue. If you don't have 100% brand safety, you have doubts about brand experience and brand uplift and other performance indicators than just a download or just a click. So that needs more market research. I completely agree to that. Measurability is one factor. I think it's looking good on that end. And another aspect, I think, which is interesting here, and I mentioned the Coalition for Better Ads, when I was trying to explain the CBA standard to games publishers, not to ad networks, but to games publishers. And I explained like, yeah, here's the industry initiative. It comes from the IAB environment and advertisers support it and so on. And they said often, who is the IAB, right? So all the ad tech companies are organized in the IAB environments and are contributing to the standards and so on and so forth. But the games publishers are an unknown country to this kind of standardization development, and that's an issue if you are talking about implementing standards. So if an in-game network like Smarto comes to a games publisher, they often might say, maybe Yusuf can confirm that, they often might say, well, I have my SDK, I can build into that, but I have a release plan, I have to build in other things first. So if you come with ads.txt or measurability or OM SDK to be included in that SDK, often games publishers say like, yeah, IAB is not that important to me as long as the revenue is growing. So that's an opportunity also for IAB Europe to grow in that direction, to make standards more viable in the European market as well, because a lot of games publishers are European based. There is a very strong industry here.
Yeah, and Yusuf, I saw you were nodding your head along there. Do you want to add anything or comment?
No, it confirms what I said before. Like there is definitely the dependency of relying on them to be conform to the industry standards. Otherwise, yeah, it makes everything a little bit more difficult or slower for sure. Yeah, and everybody has pipelines and everybody has KPIs in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great point. You know, expanding the IAB's audience to kind of speak to this kind of this new group that is so important within the kind of in-gaming ecosystem, but maybe one that we haven't we haven't got enough members on board just yet, but I'm sure we will do in time. And Gabrielle, from your perspective, when we're talking about metrics and how advertisers should be judging success, what would you say to an advertiser who's kind of just getting started with in-gaming? How can they tell if their campaigns are being successful?
Yeah, before I jump into the answer, I really want to just add up to what Oliver said about educating the publisher side as well. Like, it's not only about the advertiser, it's about the small game developer to understand why advertising should be a focus for them, because most of their revenue is coming from like skins and non-advertising related stuff. So why do they actually have to think about some measurement that IAB is running? So so I think like we have to look at the market really holistically from both ends, not only like from the advertiser or from the publisher. And when it comes to the key metrics, naturally blended in game ads, and there is one of the questions in the Q&A section, most of the blended in game ads are not clickable. So we have to think of some alternative KPIs. The most common ones that we're seeing is high viewability, reach, and then if we are going in depth, if the client is more educated and more sophisticated. We're then talking about like IVT, brand safety, which Oliver mentioned just a few minutes ago. And now we're seeing proxy metrics emerging, like attention, which we are hearing that in-game ads specifically have really high attention rate. It naturally comes because of where the ads are being displayed. You know, when an ad is displayed on CTV, like a smart TV, we might go to a kitchen, but if an ad is played on your smartphone while you're playing, you won't go nowhere. Like you're playing, still running with your, like driving your car, and you're seeing that ad. So it's a totally different environment, and we're seeing these proxy metrics appearing, and it might be like a standard in the future for the advertisers to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, well, good pointing out for the Q&A, Gabrielle. So Tim, we've answered your second question there, hopefully, and we'll get to your first one in a Q&A in a few minutes time. And as a reminder, if anybody does have any questions, please do pop them in the box, and I'll make sure we get around to asking if there's to the panel as and when. And the other point that Gabrielle mentioned as well about attention, obviously a big hot topic within advertising generally at the minute. But don't worry, your friends at the Brand Advertising Committee are working on a guide to attention within brand advertising, which is due out in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Cool. We've kind of touched it a little bit here, but you know, the topic of brand safety, it's always a concern on all digital platforms. Obviously, you know, we talked about the scalability of the open exchange, and Oliver kind of mentioned the kind of the dangers within that. How have you seen the brand safety platform, brand safety companies kind of adapting to in-gaming? And you know, what's your view on brand safety within in-gaming as a whole? Oliver, we'll come to you first.
I don't have an exact view on that. So likely what works in the browser in theory works in games as well. And 100% sure the ad verification companies are active in that domain. But once again, I guess it also depends on SDK based adoption of certain measurement features, and also the things which you can which makes you preserve fraud, for example. If you look at the brand safety environment, I guess it's a bit more difficult because all the industry initiatives, if you look at tag, for example, they are not that present in the in-game industry yet. If you look at the Global Alliance of Responsible Media from the advertiser side, where they shoot out their demands for brand safety, I won't even doubt if games are mentioned there. So there's work to do. There's work to do with a growing channel. This will be done and this will be addressed. But right now, technologies which are active in the browser-based domain could be reused, but they are not 100% reused, and there you need to take the specific platform requirements also into account.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Yusuf, brand safety from your perspective, I guess it's a hot topic.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for every new format out there, there is two things that we discussed before: potential fraud, right? And also how safe it is. So yeah, overall, advertisers need to be always mindful of any potential risks and challenges associated with any channel and any format, when carefully considering this specific scenario, the game content, the ad placement, the targeting, and also the audience, right? They will be able to effectively engage in a brand safety environment if and only if they have help, right, from other third parties who make sure that their ads are completely clean, and on the other side that the publisher's traffic is also completely clean. Overall, I know that in-app gaming specifically, Oliver, you spoke about desktop, and the in-app gaming safety requirements, they're very strict. I know that any app should be first examined and approved by either Apple or Google, and before being put into the store. And even at Smaro, where I work, I know that we have a market quality team that has strict onboarding guidelines, that they double check everything from the privacy policy all the way to the TCF2 at the CST, brand safety before approving it inside our inventory, which adds another layer of extra safety for our advertisers.
Nice. And Gabrielle, yeah, how are you guys seeing brand safety?
Yeah. So I want to stress what Yusuf told about advertisers needing to collaborate with third-party companies on ensuring that brand safety is through the past years that 4 years that we worked in blended in-game space and ad tech provider. We have definitely noticed that misconception of brands thinking that in-game is not brand safe because some of the games are really shooting, violence, etc. But those brands that succeeded in blending in-game advertising, they understand that there are even simple solutions how brand safety can be ensured, not even like to use a third-party verification provider, but just like doing advertising based on genres, doing packaging, just planning your campaign better. And this is possible, what Yusuf mentioned, through collaboration with your ad tech provider or like a direct in-game provider as well. So I think this has to be just ensured at the baseline, and then we can talk about like third-party verification providers. Before that, we haven't seen them in the market, but for the past year, we're seeing some of them understanding the value of in-game advertising and having them in their like product pipeline. They're more vocal about it and trying to adjust their tools and technologies to fit the in-game space as well. So this is great, and yeah, I hope that these providers will solve the brand safety challenges that are currently in the market.
Absolutely, and I think with the growth and the scale and the revenue and the opportunity, then hopefully the brand safety platforms or potentially a new player can come along and help kind of solve those concerns. But I think it's not to diminish the opportunity that exists within gaming. It's just something that I think people should be aware of when they're kind of approaching it. And so final question from me, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. But a quick word on the future for in-gaming. Where does it go? What happens next, with the in-gaming world? Yusuf, we'll come to you first. What does the future of in-gaming look like for you?
Pretty bright, to be honest, since we've seen that there is a definite growth and innovation in this whole industry. And as long as advertisers stay up to date with the latest trends and the growth as well, and the key growth and trends, I think that they can stay ahead all the time of the curve. And of course, effectively engage the audiences, depending on what app category they would want, like Gabriel mentioned. And like I mentioned before, with the popularity of both virtual reality, augmented reality, and esports, we can see even more placements of in-gaming ads spread across all of these formats. So I'm pretty excited to see all of these tools being developed for this for all of this.
Nice, wonderful. And Gabrielle, for you, what does the future look like?
Yeah, so I definitely agree that it looks bright, but the market is definitely a dynamic one and subjected to rapid changes. When it comes to the main growth areas, definitely we have to zoom in the AAA game adopting blended in-game ads. I'm not sure when it will happen, but it's definitely one of the key growth areas when one of the biggest gaming companies adopting in-game advertising. And from my perspective, as I come from ad tech, I really hope more of involvement from ad tech companies of providing the best suited targeting capabilities, planning features for the advertisers. We're still seeing a slow involvement from ad tech companies in this kind of sense. And I mentioned it before, the growth areas that will impact in-game advertising is through standardization Is it through OpenRTB protocols or it's through IAB, not only about viewability, but we're seeing communication about dwell time, which has to be standardized right now. We're seeing 5 different logics, which doesn't cut the advertiser needs. So yeah, I see these 3 things as the main growth areas.
Nice. I think it might be good to ask you the other question from Tim in the chat about where does the market currently stand in terms of making console and desktop availability, inventory available. You kind of touched on the AAA gaming, but I'd love you to kind of respond to his question if you can.
Yeah, so right now there are some PC and console games that support blended in-game advertising. The scale, it depends on the market. Naturally, we're seeing a higher scale in tier 1 countries like US, UK, and so it really, so there are supply, but it really depends where you're looking at. So definitely reach out to the ad tech provider or the partner that you work with to check the opportunities, what are available right now in a specific country that you work with. You want to advertise in, because there are definitely some opportunities, but we're talking still about more of smaller games. We're not talking about AAA games or anything like that, but still advertisers already can start advertising, understand how the advertising works in PC and console games, and then be more acquainted for the future growth. Brilliant,
thank you very much. And then I'm conscious we've got 2 minutes left on the clock, so I'll quickly jump to Pushkar's question in the Q&A, who's asked about advergaming in game advertising, where gameplay is designed around the brand/product feature. Any of you feel you've got a good answer for Pushkar that you'd like to put forward? No? Maybe we'll follow up with Pushkar on that one. But Helen's joined us back on screen, so I have.
I can't believe how quickly that went, and also how many questions we got through. What was really funny, there was some other questions that had come through looking at brand safety. Actually, Oliver, the Coalition for Better Ads. So what we're going to do in the follow-up, as we said, we're recording this webinar. We will share this out. We're posted up. Everyone that's has joined up for the webinar, we sent an email, and then we'll provide documents so that everyone can go for details on brand safety, the Coalition for Better Ads, all of the different standards. Ryan, you very kindly complimented the guide many times, but if we have missed anything, we'll be sure to include that in the email. But a huge thank you to our panelists, to Yusuf, to Oliver, Gabrielle, and to Ryan for moderating today's session. And it has been very, very insightful, and the amount of information that came through within an hour, brilliant. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you all very soon. And just one word, we've got Interact, which is our big conference, IAB Europe's annual conference, which takes place in less than 2 weeks. So please do book your tickets. There's still some available, and we look forward to seeing you in sunny Madrid and avoiding the thunder of we have the clouds over here. All right, thanks a lot. All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.